Greetings, this is yours truly, Chrissy Imhotep, and I'm here to really celebrate the life of the great Derrick Morgan, who was just recently celebrating his 80th birthday, whichever way you want to pull it. The 27th of March, just gone 2020, which was last week Friday. He was celebrating his 80th Earth Strong. And I'm here just to talk a little bit about Derrick Morgan because he's one of our living legends, one of our living icons, still alive today, still touring. At 80 years of age, he's still touring and making songs, recording songs as well. But Derrick Morgan's journey began all the way back in the 1950s as a teenager, when he was partaking in the great John's Opportunity era at the Ward Theatre in Kingston. He also had places at the Palace Theatre, which he won one night when he beat the likes of the great Owen Gray, Eric Monty Morris, Hortense Ellis, the great Wilfred Jack Edwards, and in a talent contest, imitated Little Richard, because at that time many of the artists imitated people like Little Richard, Nat King Cole, Fats Domino, and others. But Derrick Morgan so happened to take a shine into Little Richard, and upon winning that singing contest, which was of course put on by the great Johns for budding young up-and-coming singers. At that time, Jamaica didn't really have a recording industry, because this is around 1955, 1956, and the recordings began to happen in Jamaica really professionally towards the end of the 50s, so say 58, 59, but this is 55, 56. And upon winning this singing talent contest, Derrick Morgan was taken around the island by the great comedy act, Bim and Bam. Bim and Bam were one of the prominent comedy duos of the day, along with Slim and Sam, Sparky and Pluggy, and others like that. But Derrick Morgan, of course, began recording in 1959 for the great Drew Creed before he had Treasure Eye Records. And he said that one day he heard Owen Gray over the radio, and he heard also Wilfred Edwards over the radio, and also Eric Monty Morris. And he said he wanted to know how they got their songs on the radio, but they wouldn't tell him. And so he said, you know what, let me write some songs. So he just began writing some songs, and he said somebody told him about Drew Creed, that Drew Creed was actually holding auditions. And so he said, let me write a couple of songs, and he wrote Lover Boy, and he wrote Oh My, which happened to be his first two recordings, Lover Boy and Oh My. And there were two local hits at the time. So he wrote the song, and he took it to Drew Creed, and Drew Creed liked it, and he said, oh, we're going to have a rehearsal. Can you come to the rehearsal? And with the likes of the great drummer, Auckland Drumbago Parks. He was also a talent scout and a musical trainer. Auckland Drumbago Parks. He also tutored a lot of the early musicians, people like Jimmy Cliff and people like Desmond Dekker were tutored by him in the early days. He sadly passed away about 40 or 50 years ago somehow. Anyway, and so Derrick Morgan had those two, and then a little after that he found Prince Buster. Of course, those two related to have a running feud with each other, Prince Buster and Derrick Morgan. Anyway, in the early days when Prince Buster was just starting out, he found Derrick Morgan, and Derrick Morgan helped him with some songs like They Got to Go. Derrick Morgan actually went to Prince Buster's house and they done the song together. Actually, it was actually Prince Buster's song, but Derrick Morgan helped him to shape the song. And that was a big hit for Prince Buster. If anything, that was one of Prince Buster's first recordings, actually, which came out in the ska period. So this was 1961 now. 1961 going into 1962. Before much ado, Derrick Morgan was born in Clarendon in Jamaica on March 27, 1940. As a young boy, Derrick Morgan was partially blind, and so his night vision was really poor, and a family member of his realised this, and they got him to move to Kingston as a 3-year-old. And so he moved from Clarendon to Kingston as a 3-year-old, and it was really fate, because that's where he was to have his musical career. So I think it was a matter of fate and a matter of blessing in that sense. That of course he had a poor eyesight, but he was able to relocate to Kingston, where all the big studios were, and where it was all happening. You know, it's a bit like New York, Paris, Milan, London. That everything was happening in Kingston at that time. So if you wanted to be a singer, and of course Derrick Morgan through at the time, he wasn't thinking about music, but it just so happened that he was in amongst it, and he got into it, and then he went into John's, where he won a singing talent contest, and then was taken around by the great Premier League duos of the day in terms of comedy, Bim and Bam, and then really opened up for him, you see. As I said, he imitated Little Richard. He toured around the world as well. He came to England. He had a big hit in 1969 with Moon Hop, which was covered by some of the UK-based fledgling reggae acts of the day, like the Pyramids and Syrup, and acts like those who covered Moon Hop, which was a big hit in the late 1960s. It got into the charts, Moon Hop. But I think that's the only song like Derrick Morgan done got into the UK pop charts. All the other hits he had went into the reggae charts, both over here and both in Jamaica. So many hits he had, so many. Forward March was one of the songs that was really initiated and ushered in the new independence in Jamaica in 1962. Forward March! Yeah, and then he goes on to sing the song, and there's a wonderful horns at the beginning of the song, and then Derrick Morgan comes in and sings the line, and let's get together. We're independent, we're independent. Classic song. It was also a #1 hit in 1962. One of a few songs that really ushered in the new independence in Jamaica in 1962. As I said, he started recording in 1959 for Drew Creed, and of course he went on to sing for Prince Buster as well. Shake a Leg was a song he did for Prince Buster. Oh, shake a leg. One of the most distinctive voices and vocalists ever to come out of Jamaica. A wonderful baritone voice. Beautiful. But he could also sing tenor as well. And some of the songs he did in the reggae period of the 1960s. When I say the reggae period, as I mentioned many times over the years, they had ska, they had R&B, which Derrick Morgan was a part of. Then they went into ska, which Derrick Morgan was a part of course, referred to as the king of ska, along with Prince Buster. They're really two kings of ska, with Derrick Morgan and Prince Buster, of course, those two. And then they had rocksteady. Derrick Morgan was still prominent in rocksteady. Then you had reggae. He was still prominent in reggae. And then towards the end of the 60s, in the early 70s, when some of the skank rhythms came into play in Jamaica, Derrick Morgan was still there, but he was also producing this time. He wanted to produce people like Iroy and those guys. He produced Iroy and some others. He also did a wonderful song towards the end of the 60s on the Red Dream rhythm. You know, the Red Dream song that Max Romo brought into the charts in 1969. He interprets his version as "Hold You Jack, Hold You Jack, all him," on that same Red Dream rhythm, which was produced by the great engineer Linford Anderson. But the original rhythm was produced by the great Bunny Lee for Max Romeo's version, but he bought it. But that rhythm has been sampled so many times. Euro did a version of it as well. So it's absolutely a wonderful, contagious rhythm that many of the Jamaican artists, or some of the Jamaican artists at that time, had used. And there was also a dub version to it as well. But yes, but Derrick Morgan, I mean, for all of the Windrush generation that came to England in the 1960s, he was like their icon, because everybody knows Derrick Morgan. I don't think there's a man of that generation or woman of that generation. I'm talking the 60s generation, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. They all know Derrick Morgan. They all know Derrick Morgan is, and he was one of the favourite artists along with Prince Buster at that time, because those are the two kings of ska. You see, they had a running feud for a while in the 60s. Derrick Morgan sung a song called Blazing Fire, because apparently Prince Buster thought that Derrick Morgan betrayed him, because he was working with him, helping him to write songs, helping him to structure some of the songs and so on, and singing songs for him and making them into hits. As I mentioned before, Shake a Leg was one of those songs that Derrick Morgan did, and some other songs he did. Life is Tough was another one as well he did for Prince Buster, 1963, and some other songs. And so what happened was, at that time there was a Chinese Jamaican producer by the name of Leslie Kong, he was an international producer because a lot of the songs that he recorded and produces became international global hits. And so as a result of this, Derrick Morgan jumped on the Leslie Kong bandwagon, and he left Prince Buster and he started recording for Leslie Kong. And then this got Prince Buster mad, and then they started lobbying songs at each other. You know, Prince Buster called Derrick Morgan a blackhead Chinese because he's black, of course, but he goes to record for this Chinese Jamaican producer, so betrayed his own black brother to go to record for a Chinese Jamaican producer. And Prince Buster got Prince Buster mad, so he started lobbying songs at Derrick Morgan, and Derrick Morgan answered back with Blazing Fire, and then songs like other songs came in the scene, and they're just, you know, going at each other back and forth for about, I don't know, several months, and then it came to an end. The authorities asked them to call it a truce because it was spiraling out of control. So what happened was, as a result, the two of them ended up in the newspaper, in the Jamaican newspaper. I think it was the Gleaner, or was it the Jamaica Times? One of them. You know, they ended up in the newspaper, and then but as both of them shaking hands with each other. So they called a truce because the authorities didn't want this to spiral too much out of control, because it was spoiling the industry at the time. And so what happened was, as a result, there was a picture of Derrick Morgan and Prince Buster in the Jamaican newspaper holding hands, or shaking hands together. So Prince Buster's hand and then Derrick Morgan's hand, and then I think it was all fun because even they said it wasn't really nothing serious, but it's very competitive because Derrick Morgan was singing a song aimed at Prince Buster. And then Prince Buster I think started it. He started the feud by saying how you betrayed you betrayed your own black brother to go and sing for a Chinese producer. And then Derrick Morgan answered back, and they were back and forth for several months, about maybe, I would say, at least 10 songs each aimed at each other. At least, could be more than that. But anyway, there you have it. You know, but as I said, Leslie Kong was rising. He recorded with Jimmy Cliff in as early as 1961 with songs like Hurricane Hattie and Derrick Beverly. And so, and I'll talk about that another time, Jimmy Cliff's story, how he got into recording. I'll talk about that another time. But for the time being, we're here to celebrate the great Derrick Morgan. And before I forget, I'll say happy birthday to my favourite singer of all time, Jimmy Cliff. He was 72 yesterday, the 1st of, sorry, not yesterday, now it's the 3rd. So it was Wednesday, the 1st of April. He was 72, because we're the 3rd of April today, Friday the 3rd of April. And Derrick Morgan's birthday was last week, Friday the 27th of March. So we say thank you so much, Derrick Morgan, for the music you've sung over the years. You're still making music now as we speak. You're still touring. Of course, we're in a situation where we're in lockdown because of the coronavirus. So we've had to stay in and isolate some of us and just stay in and so on. But I know when everything is up and running again, we pray that Derrick Morgan has good health and that he's still here and that he can still keep touring, because we love him and we love that passionate energy for somebody of his age. He has showed no deficiency whatsoever. He still sounds the same as he did 30 or 40 years ago, and tours with so much vigor, dancing with so much energy and so much passion, and singing with so much clarity. And I don't think he's had to write another song for about 20 years, because all the songs he wrote towards the end of the 50s, throughout the 60s, throughout the 70s, and much of the 80s, he sings them because those songs they stand the test of time. And it's such a beautiful thing to know that we still have an icon, but we've lost many of our icons. We pray that he lives forever, of course. So we've covered all of that thing. As I said, so many songs. He actually went into production. He has a label called Hop Records, and some of his songs in the rocksteady period ended up on that label, because a lot of Jamaican singers were going into self-production, you know, because a lot of the producers, I've mentioned this many times over the years in some of my shows, that a lot of the Jamaican producers were ripping a lot of the artists and musicians off. They would cut a record, make a recording for a particular producer, and they were getting their payments for it. They were getting their royalties for it. They might have gotten or received a one-off payment of about £20, which is really meager at that time. But when the song goes into compilations, when it gets played on the radio, the artists don't really receive any money for it. And so what they did, they started going into self-production, so at least they know they're making some money when the song gets released and if it becomes a hit, everything's done on their label. So they're reaping their own royalties and their own benefits financially from it. Some of the producers in Jamaica were very, very kind to the artists. People like Leslie Kong, who Derrick Morgan recorded for, as I mentioned. In actual fact, it was actually Derrick Morgan who helped when Jimmy Cliff came to started recording for Leslie Kong. He helped Jimmy Cliff to rehearse. He also helped Desmond Dekker to rehearse when he came to Leslie Kong. And Derrick Morgan and Leslie Kong were very close up until Leslie Kong's untimely passing in 1971 at the tender age of 38. And so Leslie Kong was one of those producers who paid you. People like Clancy Eccles paid you and they ensured that you got royalty payments. Keith Hudson was another one. Keith Hudson ensured that you got paid. Dennis Al Capone, the great DJ, talks very, very highly about Keith Hudson, how he's the first man to go and set up a bank account for Dennis Al Capone, for him to actually receive some royalty payments. These things are so important. But that's for another time. We say thank you to the great living icon, living legend, living immortal, Mr. Derrick Morgan, who was 80 last week. So because of so many things happening, because we lost Bab Andy and so on, and so the corona, it got Derrick Morgan's 80th Earth Strong got kind of pushed to the side. But I'm here to address the situation and to address the balance, and I want to say thank you. I've not forgotten you. Chrissy has never forgotten you, and I'm sure there's others out there who have never forgotten that Derrick Morgan was 80 last week. And we say thank you. This video is dedicated fully to Derrick Morgan. We say thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, sir. We love you, and keep putting out the songs, keep performing. Take a rest now because you have to, because of circumstances, but hopefully when all this is over, we want to see you back touring and performing and making those wonderful songs for all of us to be uplifted by. So you take care of yourself. Thank you so much. We love you. Pick up yourself, Derrick Morgan. One love. Peace. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Chrissy Imhotep. Subscribe down the bottom. Click on the red link. Like all of our videos. Share them around as well. And make your comments. Leave your comments down below as well. Thank you so much. Take care. Bless the love.